Let's start.
Good morning. My name is Gregory Longini. I am the Secretary to the Chicago Transit Board. On September 9th, 2020, the Office of the Secretary of the Chicago Transit Board issued a notice of changed format of meetings of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget and the Chicago Transit Board, both meetings scheduled for today, September 16th, 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker had issued a disaster proclamation on August 21st, 2020, which is in effect through September 21st, 2020, to address this emergency. Section 12 of the proclamation declares that in-person attendance of more than 50 people is not feasible in light of public health concerns. Good morning. This means that Chicago Transit. My name is Gregory Longini. Occurring on September 16th. I am the Secretary to the Chicago Transit Board virtually. And let the record show that General Counsel Karen Simonts and President Dorval Carter, General Counsel Karen Simonts and Board Secretary Gregory Longini are in the 567 West Lake Street building, which is the headquarters of the Chicago Transit Authority, where this meeting is originating from. With that, we may start the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget as scheduled. Chairman Silva.
Good morning.
Morning. Good morning.
I'd like to call to order the September 16, 2020 meeting of the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, so we'll take a roll call vote. Director Chevrolet.
Did you call me?
Yes,
here.
Just a roll call vote. Going down everybody with a roll call vote, make sure you're here. Director Miller.
Here.
Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Irvine.
Here.
Director Alvarez.
Here.
Chairman Silva.
Here.
We have a quorum of the committee with all 6 members present, sir. We may proceed to agenda item number 2.
Our first order of business is the approval of the committee minutes of August 12, 2020. Will the Secretary call the roll?
Yes, I will. Roll call vote on the minutes. Director Chevrolet.
I think we need a motion, Greg.
I'm sorry. We do need a motion.
So moved.
So moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Irvine. Thank you for jumping in and doing my job. Now I'll take the vote. Director Chevrolet.
Yes.
Director Miller.
Yes.
Director Jakes.
Yes.
Director Irvine.
Yes.
Director Alvarez.
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes, sir. We may proceed to agenda item number 3.
Our next order of business is the finance report. Michelle Curran will be presenting.
Good morning. I'm Michelle Curran, Vice President of Budget and Capital Finance. Today I will be presenting the July financial results as compared to the original budget. Next slide, please. Farebox revenues are down $22.8 million, bolstered a little bit by the first full month of returning to front door boarding on the buses. Passes are down $14 million, and fare and pass totals down $36.8 million. That's 71% down versus 83% last month. The reduced fare subsidy is flat to budget, and non-farebox revenues are down $3.2 million. Total revenue is down $39.6 million compared to being down $44 million last month. Next slide, please. Year-to-date revenues, total revenues are down $195.1 million. Fare and pass revenue is down $181.4, and non-farebox revenue is down $13.9 million. Next slide, please. On the expense side, labor is favorable $180,000 for the month due to vacant positions. Materials favorable $463,000. Fuels also favorable by $463,000. Powers favorable by $713,000. Injuries and damages are flat to budget, and security services are essentially flat to budget. Other expenses are unfavorable by 2.3 million. As we talked about last month, we moved some capital expenses to the operating budget, consistent with past practice. Total expenses for the month are unfavorable by 400,000. And net against revenues, it's negative by 39.6 million. Next slide, please. On a year-to-date basis, total expenses are favorable by 11.4 million. And net against revenues, it's down by 183.7 million. We've added a couple of new slides to the presentation this month. First, on the public funding side, next slide, please. Public funding for the month is unfavorable 20 million, with sales tax down 10.5 million, PTF down 7.7 million, real estate transfer tax down 1 million, and PTF on the real estate transfer tax down 600,000. ICE funds are also down 100,000. Next slide, please. On a year-to-date basis, public funding is down 71.8 million. Next slide, please. With regard to the CARES funding draws, we've drawn 231 million to date of the 817 million allocated to CTA. This represents 28% of the total funding allocation. For system-generated revenue shortfalls for January through July, we've drawn 183.7 million. And for public funding draws for January through May, we've drawn 47.3 million. Next slide, please. On the commodities side, there really hasn't been any change. For fuel, we're locked in for 90% of 2020 volume, 85% for 2021, and 65% for 2022. We'll continue to look at selected purchase opportunities for 2022. For power, we're fully locked in through 2024, and for natural gas, we're locked in through the spring of 2022. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Michelle, what strategy are we following in regard to increase the ridership, okay, the ridership, okay, in order to allow, okay, I mean,
Director Silva, this is Dorval Carter.
yes.
With regards to ridership, we are actually carrying pretty close to the capacity of what we can carry and still maintain social distancing. So while we're certainly engaged in messaging around what we've done to make our system safe for customers to ride CTA, we are not doing aggressive marketing to bring customers back, primarily because we can't accommodate them right now. Until the city itself moves into subsequent phases of reopening and allows us to carry more people on our trains and buses, we are sort of in a middle of a period where we want to allow maximum opportunity for customers to ride safely, but don't want to encourage ridership to the point where we have crowded buses and trains.
If we are almost to capacity, how long is the public funding held last before we run out of?
We anticipate that our public, well, I think what you're really referring to is the emergency fund relief funding, because obviously our public funding continues, regardless. Our emergency relief funding, we forecast right now to carry us to about the end of the first quarter of next year. All of that is subject to a lot of variables, including what our regular public funding comes in at, as well as our ongoing revenue from the fare box. But that's our best estimate to date on when we think that the emergency relief funding would expire for us.
Thank you.
Any further questions? I'm sorry.
No, just a comment. I really appreciate the public funding report or the emergency relief, public funding report. That really helps us to keep a track on everything. And with regards to power, it looks like we've done everything we can there, power, fuel, and the other. I mean, it's really good. We've locked those in for several years because it looks like we've got really good rates. So kudos.
Thank you. Yeah, we were able to lock in at really attractive rates on both the fuel and the power side. Thank you.
Have we increased or decreased on buses or train?
Service levels, is that what you're referring to?
For the rider, the president talked about the capacity. So have we increased, or since we're trying to, not rush back, did we decrease on bus service or increase?
Director, we have not decreased either our bus or rail service. We have, on the bus side, we have redeployed some of our bus service to address where we're seeing higher demand, particularly on the south and west side of the city. But no, we have not decreased any of our service. We've been running full service during the entire time, primarily, as I indicated, to maximize the ability of the customers to socially distance on our trains and buses.
Okay, thank you.
Director Jakes, do you have any questions? Director Jakes? No? Director Irvine, do you have any questions?
No questions, thanks.
Director Chevrolet, do you have any questions?
No questions.
There's no further questions from any board members on the finance report, I believe. All right, then why don't we make a switch, Lissa, now for the court reporting? I'm sorry, for the sign language interpreting, why don't we make a switch?
Actually, Greg, I'm going to keep going. I think we have a little bit of a technical thing happening.
A little bit more time? That's fine. You let me know when you want to switch. Then,
excuse me, Greg.
Yes.
I think Director Jakes dropped off. Please stand by.
He's off? Okay.
We go to agenda item number 4.
Not yet, Chairman. We've lost Director Jakes. We're trying to get him back on. So we'll go, as soon as we get him back on, we'll go to it. Herb will let us know. I'm sending you an email from Director Jakes.
He's rejoining right now.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I got kicked off. I'm back in.
Okay. All right. Director Jakes, did you have any questions on the finance report?
No questions.
All right, thank you. Then Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to agenda item number 4.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an additional experimental University Pass program agreement with City Colleges of Chicago for part-time students for the fall 2020 and spring 2021 semesters. Michelle Curran.
Thank you. Good morning. Again, I'm Michelle Curran, Vice President of Budget and Capital Finance. Today, for your consideration, I'm presenting a proposal for an extension of the City Colleges of Chicago part-time UPass pilot program for the fall 2020 and spring 2021 terms. Under the pilot program, selected part-time students taking between 9 and 11 credit hours are eligible to receive a UPass. The initial City Colleges part-time pilot program was implemented during the fall 2018 and spring 2019 terms and subsequently extended for the 2019-2020 school year. The pilot program allows up to 4,200 part-time City Colleges students to be eligible to receive UPasses, the same as the 2019 to 2020 agreement. Last school year, approximately 2,100 part-time City College students received UPasses. At the onset of COVID-19, all City Colleges schools transitioned to online learning in March of 2020. Due to this, CTA did not receive sufficient ridership data for the spring 2020 term, and staff recommends an extension of the City Colleges part-time student pilot for the 2020 to 2021 academic year. City Colleges will pay CTA the daily per student rate of $1.25, which is consistent with the general UPass program. At the conclusion of the pilot, CTA will review the ridership of the part-time UPasses issued and make a comparison to the revenue earned to make a recommendation as to the potential permanency of this UPass model. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michelle.
Do we include remote participants, students, okay, that are online?
Students who are online are also eligible to receive the UPass. Typically, that is not the case, but with the change that we made last month with the full-time program, as well as with the part-time program we're presenting, we would allow students to obtain a UPass who are studying remotely or online.
Approximately how many students online do we have, or you don't know?
I'd have to get back to you on that. I'm sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Alvarez-Rosales, any questions?
No questions.
All right. Director Chevrolet, any questions?
No questions.
Director Miller, any questions?
No questions.
Director Jakes, any questions?
No questions.
Director Irvine, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, there are no further questions on this item.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance.
Chairman Silva? Chairman Silva?
Yes.
We need to place this item on the omnibus for board approval. We need leave.
Okay, since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. That's been moved and seconded, Chairman Silver. So we may now proceed to agenda item number 5.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for tax increment financing funds for improvements in the Dearborn Street subway. Bill Mooney.
Good morning. Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Chicago and the CTA for the use of tax increment financing to make improvements to the CTA's Blue Line Dearborn subway. The IGA will provide CTA with approximately $2 million in capital funding to make improvements related to 3 specific projects in the Dearborn subway. Upgrades to the emergency lighting system, to station and tunnel lighting, and repairs to surface level vent grading in the area of Monroe. All work will be performed by CTA forces. I'll be happy to take any questions on this item.
Thank you, Bill. Chairman Silva, do you have any questions for Bill?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Director Alvarez-Rosales, do you have any questions for Bill?
No, sounds like something needed, but which I'm glad to see we're doing that. So no questions, though.
Thank you. Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
And Director Irvine?
No questions.
Thank you. There are no further questions on this item, Chairman.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
I second.
So that was moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Irvine. So Chairman Silva, we may proceed to agenda item number 6.
Our next order of business is the review of an ordinance authorizing a non-intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for tax increment financing funds for improvements to the Lake Street Bridge. Bill?
Thank you. Staff recommends approval of an ordinance authorizing an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Chicago and the CTA for the use of tax increment financing to make improvements to the CTA's track associated with the Lake Street Bridge. The IGA will provide the CTA with approximately $7 million in capital funding to make improvements to the CTA's track structures that support the operation of the Lake Street Bridge. The work will be performed in coordination with the Chicago Department of Transportation and their full reconstruction of the bridge itself. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. I see that Ellen is back on doing sign language interpreting. Thank you. Chairman Silva, do you have any questions regarding Bill's TIF project on Lake Street?
Bill, how many bridges do we have still to be fixed?
So we have 2 shared bridges with the Chicago Department of Transportation where we travel over the Chicago River. These are the bascule bridges that go up and down to allow the boats out to the lake. The first one was the Wells Street Bridge, which CDOT did a reconstruction of, and we did associated track work in the mid-2009, 2010 timeframe. This would be the second one on Lake Street, which CDOT has a planned reconstruction for, which would include the track directly on the bridge. And what we're seeking financing for, and ultimately our supporting project, would be to do all the approach track that supports the bridge operation itself.
Thank you.
Director Alvarez, do you have any questions?
No, it just looks like, so it'll take a couple of years to complete. Is that correct?
Yeah, so CDOT is also seeking funding for the bridge reconstruction, and they have a separate TIF kind of commitment towards their funding for the bridge. It's about an 18-month to 2-year design for their bridge work. Our work will go in coordination with their work, so the impact to our customers is all one kind of fell swoop of construction versus us doing a project and then CDOT coming right on the tail of it. So we're trying to coordinate that work.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Director Chevrolet, any questions?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
Sure. So Bill, is there going to be track closures when we do the work?
There'll likely be a series of line cuts to facilitate both the bridge reconstruction and our associated work that goes with it.
Would it be like a complete cut or would it just be a single track?
It would be a complete cut.
Okay.
I don't have a whole lot of details as we're still kind of in the planning phases on this, and as we advance the design and coordinate our design with the CDOT design. Like the Wall Street Bridge, they actually floated the new bridge section in, and there was a kind of a longer period of line cut. We're not completely clear on their design and what may be their plan for this. And our work would kind of be built around some of their more major outages.
Thanks. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Silva, there's no further questions for Bill on the Lake Street project.
If there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Directors Jakes and Irvine. So Chairman Silva, we may proceed now to agenda item number 7.
Our next order of business is an ordinance authorizing additional funding for contract number B12 OP04206 with the Genuine Parts Company doing business as NAPA. Ellen McCormick and Juan Pablo.
Ellen McCormick, Vice President of Purchasing and Supply Chain. Good morning. I'm here before you this morning requesting the authority to increase the CTA's budget for its contract with Genuine Parts Company, DBA NAPA, in the amount of $22 million. This increase is necessary in order to ensure adequate funding through the term of the contract, which expires in November of 2020. We'll note that later in the meeting, I will also be requesting the authority to enter into a new contract with NAPA in the amount of $400 million in order to continue to improve and modernize the CTA supply chain. At this time, I would like to inform you of the successes we have achieved under the current contract. Next page, please. The CTA has one central warehouse distribution facility located at 901 West Division, which is 330,000 square feet. 3 satellite warehouses, 2 storerooms, 7 bus garage stock rooms, and 8 rail terminal stock rooms. The total number of supply chain employees is 135. In 2012, an assessment of the CTA's warehousing system was performed, and it was determined that the CTA held an excessive amount of inventory in stock. Next page. A determination was made to enter into a third-party vendor-managed inventory agreement in order to modernize supply chain operations in the following ways. Right-size the CTA's inventory, improve the availability of materials for bus, rail, and facility maintenance, upgrade warehousing technology with scan guns and electronic barcoding, reduce obsolete inventory and prevent the buildup of obsolete inventory going forward, facilitate the resale of unused material, and increase DBE participation. The original contract with NAPA was entered into in November of 2012 as a piggyback off the City of Chicago contract. Over the past 8 years, we've seen a reduction of CTA-owned inventory from over 100 million in 2012 to 440 million in 2020. We've digitized the warehouse operations. We now have barcoding and scan gun technology throughout the supply chain. We've received higher core credit recoveries. We've recovered just under 900,000 in the sale of obsolete inventory. Prior to the NAPA contract, when we had obsolete inventory, our only alternative was to sell the material for scrap, which gave us pennies on the dollar. Under the contract, NAPA uses its influence in the market to convince manufacturers to buy back their product from us at a much higher rate. Another big success under the program has been the keep fill process for bulk tank monitoring. It used to be a real problem for CTA to keep track of the fluids, and we would often run out. And these are fluids necessary to keep our buses and trains running. We now have tanks that notify our vendors when it is time for replenishment. And this is no longer a problem for the CTA. We now have better pricing of items. We have real-time pricing to achieve the lowest price at any given time. We have access to more national suppliers, which in turn makes us less reliant on OEMs. Because we can now use alternative parts. We have better management, material management. In 2013, we had approximately 24 buses and an average of 24 buses and 9 rail cars held in every day for a lack of materials. In 2020, that number has been reduced to 6.6 for buses and 7.5 for rail cars. I would like you to be aware that this is well below the national average. For a fleet our size, they would expect there to be hold-ins for materials for approximately 30 for buses and 30 for rail cars. So we're far below that. We've also increased our percentage of DBEs substantially. And we had 12% DBE participation in 2012, and in 2020, we have 29.5%. NAPA and the CTA diversity team have been working very closely. So the total DBE spend on the contract through July of 2020 was 114 million. Which represents 28.74% of the overall contract value. NAPA worked with the diversity team to hold 5 outreach events and participated in many others. NAPA has re-engaged underutilized DBE vendors to achieve this goal. Next page. As you can see, the CTA's parts costs have been well below industry benchmarks. Next page. The CTA engaged KPMG to assess the CTA's current vendor-managed inventory program. KPMG rated the CTA as highly developed compared to CTA's peers. The CTA issued an RFP for a new third-party VMI contract, resulting in Genuine Parts Company, DBA NAPA, being recommended for award of the new contract. The proposed VMI contract would be for a period of 5 years with one unfunded 5-year extension option. The base contract amount would be for $400 million. Operating expenses reduced from approximately 10.4 million on the previous contract to approximately 9.1 million over the base of the new contract. The markup remains the same as the previous contract, 7% on stock parts and 5% on fluids and non-stock parts. This is very competitive to the industry average of 10%. NAPA is increasing their staffing while reducing their operating expenses by over $1 million during the base term of the contract. The DBE goal is 30% for the life of the contract. I believe Juan Pablo would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Ellen. Good morning, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. As Ellen mentioned, I would like to provide you a few more details on the efforts that NAPA has demonstrated during their current contract. As the slide showed, NAPA has consistently met or exceeded their DBE commitments on the contract and spent over $100 million with DBE firms. When I started in 2014, one of my tasks was to help increase and diversify the number of DBE firms that NAPA was using. Together, we've held a total of 5 outreach events with NAPA, including several speed networking sessions in which multiple NAPA representatives were present to talk to DBE firms about opportunities with the CTA. 18 firms that have worked on the current VMI contract have attended at least one of the outreach events. NAPA has also participated in a number of outreach events hosted by us and other agencies, including the Transportation Symposium and Battle of the Bids. Finally, NAPA has also met one-on-one with multiple DBE firms and diversity staff to discuss opportunities. Essentially, when a DBE firm learns about the contract and contacts diversity wanting to participate, we would call NAPA, and within a week, they would have a meeting to discuss how they could have them participate. These firms are included in NAPA's request for quotes for the items that fall within their specialty area. The average spend per DBE firm is $2.56 million. Although the new contract has a 30% overall goal and not annual goals, we will continue to monitor this contract monthly. We receive NAPA's spend reports every month and verify the information input into B2G. We also conduct annual site visits with the firms that are participating on NAPA's contract to ensure that they're being treated fairly. Happy to answer any questions.
Yes, what percentage of our inventory is under this ordinance?
Approximately 95%. Oh, I'm sorry, yes, approximately 95%.
95%? And what CTA represents of NAPA sales? What CTA represents of the sales of NAPA?
So approximately 95% of the items that we purchase is through this contract, through the NAPA contract, for the buses and trains.
And of the total company, NAPA, what do we represent on their sales?
Oh, on NAPA side? I'm not sure, but I do know we are their largest BIS. We are the largest of theirs.
Thank you. And very, 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 very good presentation.
Thank you.
Dr. Alvarez.
Yeah, just kudos to everybody involved in this because huge savings for us. And I think it helps CTA really serve as an example for the rest of the industry that this can be done. You know, I want to point out that just also commend NAPA, because it sounds like they're very hands-on and very involved with the whole process as well, which is the type of thing that we love to see our vendors do, especially with regards to what sounds like with the DBE process, I'm sorry. I mean, I think that sounds really great because it's, in the long run, what makes a big difference is when you have that type of involvement. I think it helps us on all levels. But thank you for all this hard work and everybody that was involved with it, because it, especially during this crucial time that we're going through, this is the type of work that we need. These cost savings, these efficiencies, and yet at the same time, we're helping build other businesses that are benefiting from that. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Chevrolet, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Director Miller.
No question, just congratulations, good job.
Thank you.
Director Jakes.
No questions.
Director Irvine.
No questions, but just, echo what Director Alvaro Rosales said. Just, great work, Alan. Great work, Juan Pablo and the whole team put this together. So well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Silver, that completes the questions and answers for agenda item number 7.
Since there are no further questions, may I have leave to place this item on the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
I second.
Moved and seconded by Jason Irvine. Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to the contracts. Contract number A1.
Our next order of business is contract A1, a change order for rail car purchases.
Any questions, Director Silva?
No, I don't have any questions.
Director Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
This is a change order, right?
Yes.
Okay, no questions.
Okay. Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Okay, there's no questions on this one.
Actually, Secretary Longini, I think I do have a question. A quick question. What was the original amount of this contract?
Go back to Ellen for that.
Yes, the original amount of the contract was $639,561,990.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, thank you.
Sure.
That answers you, Director Chevrolet?
Yeah, that answers my question. Yes, when I took a look at this, I didn't know whether it was a change order or something. When I saw under $5 million for 846 rapid transit cars, I knew it couldn't be the original price.
Yeah.
Hey, it would be closer to 1 billion.
Yeah. Okay. We can now move on, Chairman Silver, to contract number A2.
So the business is contract A2 for proposal for rail car parts.
Any questions, Alex?
Yeah, this for all of the rail cars. So this is the latest rail cars that we acquire.
This procurement is for phase 2 of the 5,000 series railcar overhaul of 714 railcars.
Okay, thank you.
Director Alvaro Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No question.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
All right. Chairman Silver, we may proceed to contract B as in boy 1.
Our next order of business is contract B1, contract for mechanical and utility work.
Any questions, Director Silva?
No questions for me.
Director Alvaro Rosales?
Just the DBE goals are set for each work release issued. Is that how that's done?
No, they will not be issued for each work release. The contractor will be responsible for making sure that with each work release, they maximize DB participation.
Right.
We will work with the using group to make sure that we're also monitoring it closely, that the contractor is maximizing those opportunities, and follow up with them when they don't.
Got it. Thank you.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
All right, Chairman Silver, we may now proceed to contract B as in boy 2.
Our next order of business is contract number B2, a contract for electrical supplies.
Any questions, Chairman?
No.
Director Alvaro Rosales?
Just the prime is a DBE, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Chairman Silva, we may now proceed to contract B3.
Our next order of business is contract number B3, a contract for maintaining signal equipment. No questions.
Director Alvaro Rosales? Director Alvaro Rosales, do you have any questions on this matter?
No questions.
Okay. Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Oh, that was B3 that we just did?
Yes.
B3, okay. Chairman Silva, let's move on then to B4.
The next order of business is contract number B4, a contract for the rental of mobile cranes.
All right, Chairman Silva?
No, I don't have any questions.
Director Alvaro Rosales?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
Before we proceed, I just heard from Ellen that she can make the switch now back for sign language interpreting. So Ellen will be coming back. Okay. We now may proceed to number B4, I believe.
Oh, B5.
B5? All right, B5.
The next order of business is contract number B5, a change order for the 95th Street Terminal Improvement Project. No questions.
Director Alvaro Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
All right, Chairman Silva, may proceed to contract number C as in cat 1.
Our next order of business is a contract number C1, a contract for independent auditing services. Is this the same audit firm, okay, that we had last year?
It is.
It is.
Yes.
They're doing a good job.
Yes, they are.
Director Alvaro Rosales?
Their DBE partner was the same as well?
Yes, that's correct.
Same one? Okay, thanks.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
All right. Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
All right. And Chairman Silva, we may proceed to contract D as in dog 1.
Our next order of business is contract number D1, a planning consulting contract for the Red Line Extension Project.
Questions, Chairman?
No, I don't have any questions.
Director Alvaro Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No question.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Okay. Director Irvine?
No questions.
Static.
All right. Chairman Silva, we may proceed to contract E as an elephant 1.
Our next order of business is contract number E1, a digital communication management contract.
Chairman?
Is this the same one that we had, Ellen?
It's the same, we're using the same software that we had previously used. We're now working through their reseller, Carasoft. Granicus is the maker of the software. But the contract is through their reseller, Carasoft.
Okay. Thank you. No questions from...
Director Alvaro Rosales?
We don't have a DBE on this because it's my understanding there are no services involved. Is that correct? We're utilizing their software, meaning Granicus.
Yes, right. And so what Carasoft could do is give us advice if we had questions about that.
Okay. All right. But where there are services, in other cases, we will try to find DB utilization, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Great.
Director Rosales, consistent with the conversation that you and I had earlier this week, we're now focused on the concern you were raising about making sure that with our wraparound services that we're looking for the DB opportunities to pursue for that. And I've had a conversation with JP, and we will, make that a focus of our attention on contracts going forward of this type, where there may be other subset of opportunities that are tied to the actual work itself. So we'll keep the board informed of our progress in that area.
Great. Thank you. Thanks.
Any questions, Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions, Greg.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
All right. Chairman Server, we may now proceed to contract F1.
Our next order of business is contract number F1, a contract for a vendor managed inventory program. Can you tell me what relationship this has with NAPA?
So this is the contract I had mentioned previously. Initially, with the ordinance, I was asking for a $22 million increase on the current contract. That expires in November. So this is a new contract. We went out for an RFP and NAPA won that contract. So I'm now requesting your authority to enter into a new contract with NAPA, which would pick up when the other contract expires in November.
Okay.
Director, just to clarify, the reason that we're pursuing a change order is that we've burnt through the money under the existing contract faster than anticipated, primarily because of the additional spending that we've had to do around the coronavirus, purchasing PPE and other things. So we need to add money to our existing contract while also preparing to enter into the new contract in November as planned out.
Thank you.
Director Rosales?
No questions.
Director Chevrolet?
No questions.
Director Miller?
No questions.
Director Jakes?
No questions.
Director Irvine?
No questions.
All right. Chairman Silver, then we can proceed to contract number G as in girl 1.
Our final order of business today is contract number G1, a contract for text message services for the bus tracker system. No questions.
Director Rosales?
No questions, except that this differs from Carasoft, right? As Carasoft provides to our general customer information. And this, could you explain that a little bit, the difference between the two?
This is specifically for the bus tracker. It's specifically for the buses. So that's, they can connect through, there's a number on every sign and they can connect and find out when their buses will be arriving.
Where the other one, the Carasoft one is for general customer information,
Yes.
right? Yeah, okay, great, thanks.
Director Chevrolet, any questions?
No questions.
Director Miller? Director Miller still on? Well, maybe I'll come back. Director Jakes?
Miller, no questions.
And Director Irvine?
No questions.
Let me ask one more time. Director Miller, any questions?
No questions.
No questions?
No questions.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you, Reverend. Chairman Silva, since there's no further questions on G1, we may now move to number 8A.
Since there are no further questions on the contracts, may I have leave to place all 12 contracts on the omnibus?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, that has been moved and seconded for the contracts, Chairman Silva. We may proceed to number 8B as in boy.
Since there is no further business to come before the committee, may I have a motion to approve the omnibus and recommend the omnibus for board approval?
So moved.
I second.
That motion was moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Irvine. I will now take a roll call vote on the motion to approve the omnibus. Director Chevrolet,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Alvarez,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
That motion to approve the omnibus passes with 6 yes votes. We may now proceed, sir, to committee agenda item number 9.
And finally, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Jake, seconded by Irvine. I'll now take a roll call vote. Director Chevrolet,
Yes.
Director Miller,
Yes.
Director Jakes,
Yes.
Director Irvine,
Yes.
Director Alvarez,
Yes.
Chairman Silva.
Yes.
The motion to adjourn passes with 6 yes votes, and there will now be a 5-minute break until the beginning of the board meeting. Thank you.
2, 1.
Good morning. This is Gregory Longini, Chicago Transit Board Secretary. We are about to begin the board meeting of September 16th, 2020. Chairman Alvaro Rosales, you may begin.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I would like to call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of the Chicago Transit Board for September 16th, 2020. Would the secretary call the roll?
Yes. Director Chevrolet.
Present.
Director Miller. Director Miller.
Present.
Thank you. Director Jakes.
Here.
Director Irvine.
I'm here.
Director Silva. Director Silva.
Here. Can you hear me? Wait.
Yes, we can. Thank you. Loud and clear. Chairman Alvaro Rosales.
Here.
We have a quorum of the board with all 6 members present. And just for the record, once again, President Carter, General Counsel Simons, and myself are all in the building, which is required under the Open Meetings Act. Continue.
Thank you. Our first order of business today is public comment. Greg?
Yes, we have 2 public comment speakers. They will both be calling in. And our first speaker is Miss Long. So is Miss Long here?
Yes, I am.
Hi, Miss Long, thank you very much for calling in. You can address the board, and we ask that our speakers try to limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes. So go right ahead, Miss Long.
Okay. I am calling as a person with a disability who is taking public transit and an incident that occurred on Saturday, September 12th. My issue with the CTA is manyfold, about twofold. As I was walking to the bus stop, I looked at Transit Tracker, and it indicated that there was no bus. 201 specifically was what I was looking for, 201 Central Ridge. It said that there was no bus. The only buses going to the location were actually coming southbound. I was trying to go northbound. So from almost the corner where that bus stopped, I walked away from the bus stop because Tracker indicated that there was no bus. So as I'm walking to the train station, this was at Howard and Chicago Avenue, I was walking toward the terminal, the Howard Street terminal, where buses and trains come from. I saw a 201, or the display indicated 201. It was stopped at a red light. And I actually got to the bus and I pointed up from almost in front of the bus, asking the bus driver, was he the 201? Because the tracker indicated that there was no 201. I guess he didn't hear me, so I walked around to the door. The door was closed. The driver's shield, the plexiglass shield was up, and he also had on a mask. He did not open the door, and he motioned like he didn't know the I don't know universal symbol. I thought that he would open the door. If not there, then at the turn that he was about to make onto Howard Street, maybe to get closer to the curb so that he wouldn't be holding up traffic coming out of that station. Instead of him pulling over or opening the door, when the light turned green, he continued to turn on left onto Howard Street and continued through. He did not stop, didn't open the door, absolutely nothing. So those 2 things are really my issues, that I was informed through Tracker that there was no bus, and the bus driver didn't even have the decency to open the door. He was fully protected from COVID. Well, I didn't have on my shield. I would have been 6 feet away from him, even with his plexiglass and his mask. He did not open the door, but continued on. That was the last bus leaving, the last 201 leaving. I have some mobility problems. That bus takes me closest to where I live. I walk back to the Chicago Avenue and Howard Street bus stop, hoping that there was a bus that would get me closer to home. And at some point in 97, turned onto the street. But this really is an issue about the bus drivers being more customer friendly. I know we all have to be protected against COVID, but that was just common decency that he opened the door knowing that he was the last bus, the last 201, and just out of common courtesy. No, ma'am, this isn't a bus stop. I'm kind of new to riding. But he could have said, no, ma'am, I'm not a bus stop, as another bus driver told me. And that bus driver showed me where the bus stop was. I said, thank you. Thank you for picking me up. And thank you for letting me know where the bus stop was. This gentleman did not even stop. So that's an issue of me being in an area that seems to be getting more unsafe with the shooting in July, the shooting in May. I didn't need to be, and no one needs to be stuck when there are buses there. And no bus driver had the common courtesy to open the door. I wish that the bus drivers there would continue to, provide the service, but think about if they were in my position or in any other customer's position. Would they want to be left in the dark alone with no other bus? That is my comment. Thank you very much for listening.
Ms. Long, this is Arabelle Alba Rosales. I'm chairing the meeting today. First of all, I really want to thank you for taking the time to share this information with us. I apologize that you had to go through that situation. Number one, our apologies with regards to the bus tracker and that information not being relayed correctly to you. Our apologies on that, and also the fact that the timing and everything else, and you were left there. What I'd like to do, though, and again, I really thank you for doing this, for coming in front of us and sharing this information. It's very important for us to know this. What I'd like to do is connect you with Jairo Naranjo, who's Vice President of Bus Operations, who can more specifically and directly talk to you with regards to the situation that you went through. And and again, I really thank you for the information, and hopefully we can bring some resolution to some of these things that you brought before us. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Long, and Jairo will be reaching out to you. We have your contact information, so we will make that connection.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, now we're about to go to our second public comment speaker. Mr. Stevens, if you could just please state your name for the record and then address the board of the CTA. Thank you.
My name is Gary Stevens, and I ride the CTA regularly. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir.
Great. Although Dr. Fauci recommends it and New York City Transit has adopted an open window policy on all buses, the CTA feedback team has repeatedly rejected for 6 weeks my written suggestions to keep bus windows open. My first question is, why can New York City Transit adopt this common sense pandemic policy in early July and the CTA cannot? Every day I board a CTA bus, the driver's window is open. Every time I attempt to open a transom window on the bus above my seat, they are locked or disabled. Why are not passengers allowed this measure of protection during the pandemic that's allowed to the drivers? From a September 1st New York Times article regarding a documented super spreader COVID-19 event in China on a bus, I quote, "The only factor that may have mitigated the risk of infection was sitting near a window that could be opened or near the door." I've also requested from the CTA feedback team the number of CTA transit operators that have tested positive for COVID-19. I can find this information easily in the New York Times. As of August 26th, over 4,000 New York City transit workers have tested positive, 90% of whom worked for the division that runs the city's subways and buses. Why this information isn't published or transparent with the CTA and in the city of Chicago, I do not understand. Please answer that question as well. Per CTA rules, bus drivers are not allowed to ask someone to put their masks on, and they are not allowed to refuse service to someone who doesn't have a mask on. Why on earth is there no CTA rule requiring all passengers wear masks? I also wonder, why is the CTA feedback team anonymous? I also wonder how many passengers and their families and friends have to be infected with COVID-19 before the CTA does something as simple as keeping the bus windows open. Lastly, I'd like to ask each board director a yes or no question. Have you rode on a CTA bus or train since the pandemic began? Thank you.
Mr. Stevens, this is Arabelle Alba Rosales. I'm chairing the meeting today. First of all, I want to thank you for being here with us today. You know, I've got to tell you that during this very difficult time of the pandemic, we appreciate the input that we get from our writers with regards to better helping us service those that utilize the system. I do have to tell you, though, that although we are a transportation system and we can be comparable to other systems, there are intricacies with regards to the way we do things here. We're hoping to do things as best as we can. I'm not sure, Greg, that we have a lot of time today with regards to going individually to each one. So normally, unfortunately.
Correct. We do not have that kind of time today.
Yeah.
You know, general response and follow up with some other people, other management is appropriate.
Yes, and I know you have a series of questions that I want to make sure that we answer them correctly.
Today, can you please answer one of the questions?
That's not the way this works, sir. I'm sorry. I mean, we've got your comments in, they're transcribed, and we will get back to you, sir, to the best that we can to answer every question that you have.
Each board director can take 2 seconds to answer yes or no. Have you rode on a CTA bus or train since the pandemic began? It's a quick, easy question.
I'd like to.
It is a quick, easy question.
I'd like to answer that question if that's okay, Mr. Secretary. Sure. And Ms.
Sure.
Chairman.
Yes.
Public speaker number 2. I am Director Gloria Chevrolet on the CTA board. I live 5 doors away from one of the Brown Line stations on the CTA system. I use the Chicago Transit Authority system almost every day. I was partially blinded by a stroke back in April of 2010. And so I no longer drive in the afternoons or evenings or anything like that. I am a heavy user of the CTA, heavy user of the Brown Line and the bus lines on the north side. And I can tell you with an absolute degree of certainty that the system is cleaner than it was before the pandemic. I know that because the cleanliness on the system has been a pet peeve of mine for a long time. I have noticed the improvements. I have noticed the fact that social distancing is maintained and encouraged. I know that part of that is because there are less riders right now, because we're not back to normal yet or whatever the new normal will be. But I can tell you that when I get on a train or a bus, there's a lot of space between the passengers. I can actually distinguish between the way that rolling stock, both the rail cars and the buses, smelled before the pandemic and how they smell now and how they look now. And I, for one, am very proud of the work that the Chicago Transit Authority is doing, their facilities maintenance people, their cleaning people, because like I said, I use the system almost every day. And I appreciate your input, by the way, and keeping our feet to the fire, but I have nothing but high regards for the job that the CTA is doing.
I'm sorry, but the last time I was on a bus, there were 2 passengers without masks.
I believe your question was whether we rolled the system or not. I'm answering that question. I ride the system every day.
Okay, can I hear from the other board directors?
Chair Alvaro Rosales, Director Kevin Irvine, and Mr. Stevens, thank you for your comments. I do ride the bus and the train. I have since the pandemic, much less frequently because I'm working remotely, like many of us. President Carter, I'm wondering if you can just maybe to talk about the issue of like the windows and mask usage, because I know all of us are concerned about safety of all of our customers.
Director Irvine and President Dorval, if you'd like to quickly, yes, I've written, and I think most of us have here. I do want to keep this because we have a long agenda as well. And very honestly, one of the things that we had discussed, and I'll let President Dorval comment quickly, but there is a long list of questions that need to be addressed. And I would really like to direct it to the best person to do that so that they can walk through these issues.
Yes.
So thank you, Director Rosales, Chairman Rosales. I am familiar with this issue. I'm also familiar with the New York Times article discussing New York MTA and how they operate the rail cars. As you indicated, and as Director Chevre indicated, there are substantial differences between New York MTA's vehicles and CTA's vehicles. One thing I will state, and I think that what really needs to happen is that I need to have my head of transit operations, Don Bonds, follow up with Mr. Stevens, and you can give him a more detailed explanation of what we do and what action we take to protect our customers. But the ventilation systems that we utilize in our vehicles, buses, and trains is better than the ventilation system that you would find in most indoor homes or restaurants or other businesses. The air is circulated through those vehicles numerous times over the course of an hour, and in fact are while not identical to what you'd experience in an airplane, are closer to what you would experience in an airplane than what you experience in your own home. So there are measures in place to protect customers from airborne viruses, and we also recognize the impact of opening windows and our ability to maintain a proper level of heating or cooling within our buses or trains. But I think that the best way to handle this, instead of having a back and forth, is to have my Chief Transportation Officer, Don Bonds, follow up with Mr. Stevens and explain to him in more detail what we do and how we do it. And as you indicated, indicate all the steps that we do take to make it safe for our customers, including rules that we do have in place that require customers to wear masks.
Hi, this is the interpreter. I'm going to interrupt one moment. We're going to switch interpreters now.
Okay. We'll wait till Lisa's on.
I'm on it. The host has to allow me to get back on.
Is Lisa on?
Not yet. Interpreter number 2 needs to go on the screen.
Right. Was there a problem with the interpreter number 2 coming on the screen? I'm confused.
Hi, this is interpreter number 2. The host needs to allow me to they need to switch me out. So they're going to start my video now. We're all good.
There she is.
There you are. Okay. Chairman Alvarez, I guess we can wrap this up then.
Yeah, I know we're over our limit on this. Mr. Stevens, again, thank you so much. As our president stated to you, Mr. Donald Bonds, who's Chief Transit Officer, we're going to follow up with you because you do have a long list that we'd like to make sure that you get the proper information on. So we're going to do that. I would like, President Dorval, if we could get just a follow-up for the board with regards to some of the answers to those questions. That would be helpful.
Yes, as you know, Chair Rosales, as is our normal practice, we will provide a board follow-up to both public comments, speakers, and the information we provided to them and the way that we attempt to resolve their concerns.
Thank you. And Mr. Stevens, thank you. We're somewhat limited in this format that we have, but I really want to thank you for your interest. And we're going to follow up with you. You've got the best person assigned to you with regards to this. Thank you. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Chairman. And that concludes the public comment section of today's meeting, Chairman Alvarez.
Okay. Our next order of business for today is the approval of the August 12th, 2020 board minutes. The minutes were previously distributed to everyone. And I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the regular board meeting of August 12th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
That motion was moved by Director Jake, seconded by Director Irvine. I'll take a roll call vote. Director Chevrolet?
Yes.
Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvarez?
Yes.
That motion is approved with 6 yes votes.
Our next order of business today is executive session. It is my understanding, Karen, that there is no executive session. Is that correct?
That's correct, Vice Chair. There's no executive session today.
Thank you. And then our next order of business is on the board agenda today is a resolution number 5. This is a resolution which is an appreciation to Terry Peterson, our former chairman. Before we take a vote to approve, I would like to ask Greg to please read this resolution.
I'd be happy to. A resolution of appreciation to Mr. Terry Peterson. Whereas Terry Peterson served as Chicago Transit Board Chairman for 11 years after being appointed by Mayor Richard M. Daley in 2009. And whereas Terry Peterson is the longest tenured board chairman in the history of the Chicago Transit Authority. And whereas Terry Peterson oversaw more than $8 billion, that's with a B, in capital investments for the authority, including the Red and Purple Modernization Project, the 95th Street Terminal Improvement Project, the Wilson Street Reconstruction Project, the Garfield Gateway Project, and many more needed improvements. And whereas Terry Peterson has overseen the initial planning for the $2.3 billion Red Line Extension Project, and whereas Terry Peterson oversaw the planning and building for 5 new rail stations and improvements to another 40 stations. And whereas during Terry Peterson's tenure as board chairman, the percentage of the authority's accessible rail stations went from 50% to over 70%. And whereas Terry Peterson oversaw the repair of over 70 miles of track and the replacement or overhaul of almost the authority's entire rail and bus fleet. And whereas Terry Peterson initiated expanded programs to improve job and contracting opportunities in disadvantaged business enterprises on the authority's construction project. And whereas during the Red Line South
I will share those sentiments to him.
Construction project.
Opportunity to continue to serve.
Someone be muted.
Director Miller, we need you to mute your line.
Okay.
Thank you. During the Red Line Reconstruction project, I did that. Whereas Terry Peterson was a proponent of CTA's Second Chance program, which assists ex-offenders in finding job opportunities and offering other holistic support at the authority, resulting in more than 1,300 participants. And whereas Terry Peterson offered guidance, resources, and support to the many authority employees who were honored to work with him. And whereas Terry Peterson's commitment to improve the customer experience, service, security, and amenities, improve the quality of life of the many diverse communities served by the authority, and was evident for the 4,006 days that he served as chairman. And whereas Terry Peterson presided over 131 transit board meetings with grace and humor and respect, and never missed a single meeting in his 11 years of service. And whereas Terry Peterson always welcomed and appreciated the many individuals who provided public comment at the transit board meetings and testimony at public hearings. And whereas Terry Peterson welcomed and appreciated all the employees of the authority, whatever their position, who received commendations and recognition at transit board meetings, now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Chicago Transit Board recognize the extraordinary positive impact that Terry Peterson provided to the Chicago Transit Authority and the region's public transportation system. Be it further resolved that the members of the Transit Board thank Terry Peterson for the leadership that he provided the board for the past 11 years. And finally, be it further resolved that the members of the Transit Board wish Terry Peterson blessings, good health, and happiness in the coming days.
First of all, before I go and ask for a motion to approve this resolution, and I know we all said a number of things directly to our former chairman the last time, but he will be missed. What a great leader, I think, to all of us. And I know the one thing that makes me feel good about this is that he said he's not more than a phone call away, so which is a very good thing. The resolution, I think, summed it up, said a lot of good things, but if anyone else on our board would like to make a few comments before we go to approve this, go ahead and do so. I think we all said a lot the last time, and I know a few people had tears in their eyes the last time as well. So why don't we move forward, and I'll entertain a motion to approve board item agenda number 5, which is a resolution honoring Chairman Terry Peterson.
So move.
And I second.
Moved by Director Jakes and seconded by Director Irvine. I'll take a vote. Director Chevrolet?
Absolutely.
That's a yes. Director Miller?
Yes.
Okay. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Absolutely.
Director Silva?
Absolutely.
Chairman Alvarez?
Absolutely. Yes.
Not surprisingly, that motion passes with 6 yes votes.
Mr. Secretary Longini, may I address the chairman and the president?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Chairman and Mr. President, I have a prior commitment, a pressing matter that I need to take care of, and I need to excuse myself from the remainder of this meeting. Chairman Rosales, I trust that you will still have a quorum, since I believe you will have at least 5 directors left. So if you will indulge me, I will leave this meeting, and I will hopefully see all of you next month, hopefully in person, but if not, via Zoom again.
We do. Thank you, Director. Judge Chevrolet. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you,
Director.
Our next order of business is a report from the Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget. Director Silva.
The Committee on Finance, Audit, and Budget met earlier this morning via Zoom video teleconference. The committee approved the August 12, 2020 minutes. The committee reviewed the finance report. The committee also reviewed the following 4 ordinances: an ordinance authorizing an additional experimental university pass program agreement with the City Colleges of Chicago for part-time students for the fall 2020 and spring 2021 semesters. 2 ordinances, each authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with the City of Chicago through its Department of Planning and Development for tax increment finance funds for improvements to the Dearborn Street subway and to the Lake Street Bridge. An ordinance authorizing additional funding for contract number B1, B2, OP 04206 with Genuine Parts Company doing business at NAPA. The committee also reviewed 12 purchases and sales award recommendations. The committee approved all items and recommends board approval of all items. The committee placed all 4 ordinances and all 12 contracts on the omnibus. And that concludes my report, Chairman Alvaro Rosales.
Thank you, Director Silva. May I now have a motion to approve the omnibus as stated by Director Silva?
So moved.
I second.
Moved by Director Jakes, seconded by Director Irvine. I'll now take a roll call vote. Director Miller? Director Miller, the roll call vote on the omnibus?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvaro Rosales?
Yes.
The motion to approve the omnibus passes with 5 yes votes.
Thank you, Greg. Our next order of business is the construction report. Bill Mooney?
Bill, you're on mute.
Bill?
Sorry, joining me today, I'm Bill Mooney, your Chief Infrastructure Officer, and joining me today are Chris Buchel and Juan Pablo Prieto. They can join and introduce themselves at their sections. We'll start where we normally do, our Jefferson Park to O'Hare Signal project upgrade. If you flip forward to slide 5. Since we last spoke, we continue the cutover of the Jefferson Park Relay House, which we delivered the prior month, and I showed you pictures of that delivery. We actually have been in the process of testing and commissioning that new system at Jefferson Park. We are currently running on the new cab controls, which is what allows the safe train movement. And they're also working on commissioning the actual interlocking at Jefferson Park. So we're making progress there. We also have advanced wiring and design of additional houses at Foster, Central, Nagel, and the Harlem design has been approved and moved into shop fabrication and wiring, which is very exciting. The project remains on budget and tight to schedule. We continue to struggle kind of in the COVID environment, the social distancing in these tight locations, and being able to, operate appropriate manpower. Moving forward to slide 6, this is a picture of a train stop at the interlocking at Jefferson Park. This is the new wayside equipment installed and being tested in service. Slide 7 shows you some work. So we've continued to do some prep work for future installations and major undergrounds up at near Rosemont Yard. I showed you some pictures of this work last month. Here's some more foundation and conduit on duct bank work being installed up there. And slide 8, this is one of the new switch machines being installed and commissioned as part of the Jefferson Park interlocking. So my next project is our Logan Square Station rehab project. If we move kind of forward, as I've mentioned in previous months, all the focus is on the elevators. So the first elevator unit is in service as we speak, the fully recommissioned. So if you move to slide 12, please. This is the new elevator in service. The first one is completed and fully functional at this point. The second one has now been taken out of service and they have started demolition and reconstruction of that. On slide 13 shows you the new control features with this elevator and the modernization that goes with it. So the second unit will be coming online in the next month or so. My next project is our electric e-bus charging stations. The project remains on schedule and tight to budget. Moving kind of forward on it, most of the activity remains at Navy Pier. So if we can advance to slide 17. This is the new substation being built at that site. I've shown you some of the underground work kind of going on there. This is the actual building going up. It's starting to have walls and look like an actual building. On slide 18 is the advance of that foundation to that. So last month I showed you kind of some of the form pouring on the edges and them starting to set the conduits for the in-ground work. Here they've actually poured the full foundation and done waterproofing associated with that foundation. And slide 19 shows you some more of that exterior construction. The site continues to progress. Chicago Austin and Chicago Garage are finalizing their UL commissioning for the brand new equipment. One of those unique things I've mentioned a couple times on this project is this is the first time this equipment is being used in the country. And as such, it actually hasn't been certified by UL ever before this project. And so they are in the process of finalizing that certification so we can get our permits and put it into use. My next project is our system-wide traction power upgrades and transformer replacement project. The project continues on schedule and within budget. If we move forward to slide 22, we've completed the installations of a significant amount of facilities at this point, and most of the activity in the last month has been focused on Lotus Substation. And if we can move to slide 23, here is the removal of the existing transformer at Lotus Substation and the new transformer actually in place in the courtyard. And slide 24 shows you oil beams. So many of these are older style transformers that are oil filled and oil cooled. And before they can be decommissioned from the site, the oil actually has to be removed from them and pumped out to special totes to be removed as hazardous waste. So. Okay. My next project is our 98th Rail Shop Bridge Deck and Drainage Improvement Projects. We can advance forward a couple slides to slide 28. Since we last talked, they finished the penthouse work, and they started demolition and reconstruction of the actual bridge itself. As part of kind of the penthouse activities, there was a lunchroom and a locker room underneath that floor that had to be temporarily relocated. So we've actually been in the process of reinstalling and improving that space as well. If we move forward to the pictures, slide 29 shows you demolition of the canopy over that bridge deck. Slide 30 shows you what happens here is we actually take half the bridge deck out of service. The only access to the shop is through this bridge deck. So we have to facilitate full operation of the shop throughout this kind of project. And so half the bridge deck gets demolished and rebuilt, and then we phase over to the other half of the bridge deck. So this is the first half being demolished. And slide 31, so this is below the penthouse floor. I talked a little bit about the lunchrooms and locker rooms. So now now that we've finished the new flooring, which is really the ceiling in this room, they are reinstalling all the fire alarm systems, the drainage, new lighting, and a fresh coat of paint. And then ultimately all the lockers and other equipment get reinstalled in this space. And then slide 32 is that finished penthouse slab. Gives you a sense from what we looked at last month of what that finished product looks like. My last project today is kind of a unique project. I felt like an opportunity. It's a one-hitter. We'll only be talking about it this month. It was kind of a quick project that spent a lot of time in planning and conceptualization and development, but a really kind of quick implementation project. And oftentimes, directors, you've asked a little bit about the public art program as one-offs, post-projects. This is a standalone art project that we've done kind of to advance our collection as a whole. The piece is called The Ordinary Relic. It's by an artist named Matthew Wilson. And if we can advance a couple slides to the pictures. The vision of the project dealt with kind of a couple different elements. The first of which was the painting of the structure here, this bright yellow painting of the structure. And then the second piece was pulling out and replicating the historic customer assistance booth, or the ticket booth, actually, that's part of the decommissioned historic station there. It's a very unique piece, and he pulled forward this what he considered this relic of history that existed buried from the public eye and replicated it in this form. It mimics the same yellow as the structure here, and ultimately then we had a contractor come in and form and pour this mass pedestal that's sitting on this bright blue concrete pedestal. And along the edges of the pedestal are a series of 10 different dates that are significant to the community as historical dates. And the artist, and then kind of throughout the station, there's a couple placards that go up, I'll show you too, is kind of the last element that talk about history and memory. And the artist plays forward on this concept of memory is an individual's collection of thoughts about how they understand what occurred. History is society's collection of thoughts. And oftentimes, history is representative in statues of figures that most people don't know. And we lose a sense of this. And he felt like he wanted to play on it and open the debate on kind of what the collective person's memories are versus kind of how it's reflective in history. And he wanted to open this forum of conversation. So the project was first envisioned in 2015, and it's been through a couple iterations. But I actually feel like, though we finally got this installed, and it was a combination effort between the artist actually developing the concept, designing it, and fabricating the piece, to our trades as part of the CTA workforce doing the painting and increasing the lighting in the premises. And then ultimately we had a construction contractor who came in and poured the pedestal and installed the piece proper. But it seems like a very timely piece for the conversation that's going on in society as a whole. And it seemed like a great opportunity to share this piece with you, which we opened up and kind of fully completed about a month ago.
Hey, Bill, this is Kevin. A quick question. On the pedestal for this artwork, how are you going to be installing those guards that keep skateboarders from using that for stunts?
So it's not envisioned to have those guards today. What was existing there, Director, was actually a planter that was installed as part of the Brown Line project that had long since lost its vegetation, but it had a kind of a bench seating around it. And so they wanted to kind of keep it available. There's a bus stop that's right there to make it available for seating. We'll monitor the site. We try and build durable pieces of art that survive kind of our environments as a whole. And if it seems like it's becoming a problem, we can always do some retrofits to work it in. So.
Thanks, Bill.
Be well received, isn't it, Bill? I know we've gotten some press on it.
Yeah, we did some press releases on it. There's been some feedback. I would strongly encourage any of you to go out and see it in person. The pictures do not do it justice. And if you come out of the station, I would walk down to the corner and then walk back on it. Because walking up and seeing the structure, the bright yellow structure from a distance, it's really a really stunning kind of moment. It really is breathtaking. So, and then you can see, and actually, if you look in the windows of the old station house, which is adjacent in this picture that's on display here, you can see the historic ticket agent booth there that the replica is made of. So it's generally a neat piece. It is a standalone part of our collection. There are a couple placards on site. So if you do go out and visit that, and I'm glad to share it with you separately, that talk about what the historical dates are and what they're representative of, and kind of the artist concept and what his feelings are about what he's trying to display and the conversation he's trying to create in this. So.
It was a very interesting concept. Actually, I've experienced it is probably the best way, but you do have to kind of walk away from it and then come back toward it. It's in my area. So I do encourage everybody to do the same thing because it's a different feel when you first are just close to it, but then as you walk away and then come back in and then kind of look at it with the surroundings, it does have a different impact. So thank you for that.
And with that, there's no other questions. I'll turn it over to Chris and JP.
Before we go, with regards, does anybody else?
I'm sorry, go on.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Any of the other directors have any other questions for Bill? No? Okay.
I was cutting in because before we move on to Chris, we want to change the sign language interpreters. Let's give them a few seconds. Sorry, I interrupted.
And Herb, can you put the presentation back up, please?
Oh, okay. I think then we're ready for Chris now.
All right. Good day. I hope everyone's having a good morning. So the RPM Phase 1 design build contract is on budget and tight to schedule due to COVID-related delays. If we could skip forward 2 slides. So construction progress. It has been a very busy summer into fall. I think most of you have followed some of the main pieces, which I'll cover. But design is sort of arcing from the halfway done to sort of 60-65%, at least the main part of the design. So that effort has continued seamlessly for the most part during the COVID time. Some challenges, but pretty easy to shift a lot of that work to a virtual environment and to make significant progress. As we have continued, you'll see from the photographs, we have continued work on the bypass and the foundation. So the first photograph here shows some continuing structural work. So the columns were poured earlier. You've seen photographs of them. Now we are pouring pads on top in preparation for steel that will come. There'll be sort of a steel piece that will sit on top of the column, and then larger beams or girders that will be installed after that. Those will be coming in the early fall, or mid-fall, I should say. We're in the early fall now. Next photograph. So similar to Bill, this RPM has a major signaling component. We have been able to advance the design on various aspects of the project and have been fabricating the signaling houses. We've done much of the factory acceptance testing remotely, which is unique. I think Bill's found himself in a similar position with regard to that. So this was our first relay house, which is now, for those of you that are in the area of Wilson, been placed kind of right behind the station, behind the target there, for those of you in the area. This is a photograph of it prior to shipping. It was shipped from South Carolina up to Illinois a couple of weeks ago. Next photo. So one of the other elements that continues along with the signaling system up on the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment is the construction of temporary stations. So this is one element of the Bryn Mawr temporary station. So it is being constructed as we speak, making good progress on the construction of the temporary stations at both Bryn Mawr and Argyle. Next, please. So you've seen various slides over the course of, I think, July and August, showing the progress we've been making in the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment, installing 2 interlockings on either side of it. Those interlockings help us move trains from one track to the other and build in an incremental fashion half of the segmented box girder bridges that will follow. This was an extremely difficult piece of work that took place over a concentrated time. We did some reroutes through this area, extended reroutes, which enabled the contractor to increase the efficiency of this effort versus doing it just on weekends. So this is sort of a final picture of that work. It was completed in mid-August. Very proud of the team, the contractor, the construction manager, and my own CTA team. They did a great job in pulling together to do this work under some pretty trying circumstances. So next slide. So the segmented box girder, you will see probably a few slides of these various segments. We do cast over 1,000 of them for the major Lawrence to Bryn Mawr Bridge. So I'll beg your patience as I show pictures of a few of them, probably in different configurations. I believe you've seen pictures of the form work. It is quite a process to create a piece like this. You will also see in coming months pictures of the gantry crane, which we'll use to erect them in the following year and next year. Next photograph. So the advanced contracts, similar to last month, are really in closeout at this point. We are completing various pieces of work, mostly relative to the communication scope, where we continue to pull cable through various duct banks that were installed previously. The impacts to community on this advanced utility work is becoming less. We are coordinating to the extent there are any impacts due to service cutovers or other work on the comm side through the various aldermen's offices and making sure that our constituents are aware. We've had virtual town hall meetings to cover this topic as well. The ComEd work is, for the most part, also in closeout. If we can go to the slides, you can get a flavor for what we're doing. Some of the last work that's happening here is the city's own comm work for various sorts of fiber connections throughout the project area. Next slide, please. The DEO, for those of you not familiar, is CDOT's Department of Electrical Operations. So they handle a lot of the cabling and fiber work for the city. Splicing copper still gets done. There's not that much of it out there, but still it gets done. This is obviously in the area of Argyle. Next slide. So the outreach effort has focused mostly around some of the major construction impacts, and again has occurred all virtually. We actually had some virtual office hours. First office hour was last night, so we have a community office up in the area of the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr segment. We haven't opened that during these times for obvious reasons, but we feel as though kind of continuing with periodic, less formal communication with the community is important. So we've started some virtual office hours. We're trying to do it on a regular basis so that if people have questions, we'll answer the questions in an email, but if they feel like a longer discussion is necessary, we'll schedule time and do a public meeting with smaller groups. But you can see up here the various outreach we've done, again, mostly focused on construction and construction-related impacts, some related to job opportunities and business opportunities that I will turn over to Juan Pablo and his team to cover. So, Juan Pablo, take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning again, directors. Juan Pablo Prieto, Director of Diversity Programs. We continue to hold our monthly meetings with Walsh Floor to discuss compliance and outreach for both DBE and workforce. On August 18th, we attended HACIA's virtual membership meeting to talk to their members about our Building Small Businesses program and opportunities on RPM. We'll be attending other technical assistance agencies' virtual membership meetings to continue to spread the word about the BSP program and the opportunities on RPM. On August 21st, we held another Construction Talks webinar and took a tour of the Plumbers Local 130 Apprentice Training Center. After the tour, we answered questions regarding the Plumbers Apprenticeship Program. And lastly, we hosted a RPM training and workforce outreach webinar on August 27th. This webinar featured our workforce partners, Hire 360 and Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership, and they covered the training and career opportunities that individuals can sign up for through them, including opportunities on the RPM project. For this event, we coordinated with the aldermen in the RPM corridor, and the 48th Ward held a viewing at their office for individuals who do not have the technology to jump onto a webinar. That concludes my portion of the report. Happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions for either Chris, Pablo, or even Bill, if you thought of something that we hadn't covered? Looks like no questions. Everybody seems to be shaking their heads. No. Well, I want to thank the three of you, because great report. And apart from that, it's so good to see that we're on target with all of our projects and really moving forward. Because I think what people don't realize is just how much these projects will affect our city. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing and for keeping it on track. I also want to thank you for keeping the community organizations involved. That's not the easiest thing to do, especially right now during this period. I'm so curious how you're getting a hold of all these people, but it seems like, correct me, but it sounds like aldermen, community organizations, chambers of commerce. Is that how you're reaching out to them and then getting the feedback virtually?
Well, I mean, Juan Pablo can comment more on some of his issues, but we have developed a list of various folks. At each of our public meetings, we encourage people to sign up for alerts and otherwise provide us with their email address so that we can contact them whenever we have a meeting. As time goes on, that list gets bigger. We're endeavoring to focus it around specific pieces of work, so that you don't bomb folks in the area of the bypass with information about work that's occurring in the Lawrence to Bryn Mawr area, which they may be interested in, but may not affect them directly either as a passenger or a community member. So we're endeavoring as time goes on to make that outreach more focused. But most of it's occurring electronically through email initially, and then we set up various sorts of virtual meetings through different web conferencing platforms. And, we found in some of the virtual town halls that we've done, the participation is increasing simply because most people find that they can get the information in a more efficient way rather than taking a whole evening out. They can still be with their kids doing homework or otherwise working on stuff while they attend the Zoom conference. So we've actually seen some better participation recently in terms of community involvement. So we've tried to make some lemonade out of lemons, if you will.
Well, thank you for all that hard work. I don't know if Juan Pablo was going to say something. I wasn't quite sure.
For the DB community, much like Chris said, we are in touch with a lot of the chambers of commerce. We're members of a lot of the technical assistance agencies that help the DB community. So getting the word out through them has helped, and also attending their virtual membership meetings. As President Carter has said many times to the DB community, the diversity programs office is their #1 advocate within CTA, and they know that, so they contact us frequently to talk about opportunities on our construction projects.
Well, thank you for that. I think that's all. If anybody else has any other questions, you can ask now. If not, we're gonna move. But I want to thank the three of you for your report and for the team for their hard work, because everybody's keeping us on track. So thank you for that. We really appreciate it. Our next agenda item is new business. Greg, is there any new business?
No, ma'am, there is not.
Okay, great. Like to entertain a motion now to adjourn if there is no other business.
So move.
I second, and great job, Arabelle.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day, and appreciate it.
Yeah, let me just take the vote. Move by. And I also want to say, I just calculated, Arabelle, I've been to 264 of these board meetings. This is 265, and you did as well as anyone I've ever seen do it. So you obviously
good job.
quick to learn. So let me take the vote on the adjournment. Director Miller?
Yes.
Director Jakes?
Yes.
Director Irvine?
Yes.
Director Silva?
Yes.
Chairman Alvarez?
Yes, and thank you.
Motion passed with 5 yes votes, and we are adjourned. Thank you all.
Take care.